I was thinking about all the major sports and which major sports could incorporate women. Like NFL football, for example, would be a bad idea to include like men and women on the team. Yeah. You could maybe have a kicker, and I think there was a movie where like Kathy Ireland was a kicker, but then you have like two 500-pound linebackers that tackle Kathy Ireland. It's all a horrible idea. Basketball wouldn't work. There might be like one or two women who would be able to compete in the NBA with men, and they would probably score like on the low end, and it would be depressing for women, you know.
Yeah.
But baseball, I was thinking it might work to have both men and women on the team. And how I thought it would work is in the field, you would have men play outfield because they have to run and throw to home plate farther, so they're using male strength. And then I thought the catcher would be a man. That way you can slide and you can knock him over, and it's not like weird. Like you don't want a big, strong man to knock over a female catcher. It'd be awkward. So that's 4 positions. And then for women, first base, second base, third base, shortstop, that's 4. And the idea is that for pitcher, you could have 2 pitchers, and they're both on the field at the same time. When there's a man at bat, it's a male pitcher. When there's a female at bat, it's a female pitcher. And then the offense could rearrange the men and the women batting order however they wanted. And so what probably end up happening is for the male hitters, most of them would be the home run hitters, because that's an advantage that men have with strength, is hitting home runs. But like a short, reliable 400 batting average hitter, that would probably be women, because there's no reason why a woman can't have a high batting average and wouldn't have to be big and steroid ridden either. They would just have to be skilled. So it would be ordinary looking women and big, strong men. It allows both men and women to be on the same team, competing in the same sport, and it's also not like excluding 99% of women because they're not the 1% that's huge, big, brutish women.
Baseball is unique in that it is a sport for people that are wildly unathletic.
That's true, like fat, like Babe Ruth, and like with the big gut.
Well, like Bartolo Colon just had a home run, and he's a fatty. I mean, there's always been. There's a guy who used to play for the Red Sox whose nickname was El Guapo. That is not the nickname of a person who can run a wind sprint.
Sandoval.
Yeah.
David Ortiz is kind of big.
That guy takes a lot of steroids.
Yeah.
But I mean, yeah, it's. I guess is that kind of mean to say like, oh yeah, women can play the sport? It doesn't require you to be athletic.
Well, it's still skill.
It's skill.
It's acknowledging the fact that women can't compete with men in the highest levels of strength sports. So this is a way. It's a major sport that would get major viewership, and it allows the skill of being a batter, which is like hand-eye coordination, and like it allows women to compete at the highest level and not diminish the quality of the sport, like WNBA.
You could also do that with
who
golf.
Can't dunk and like.
With women's golf, the majority of women can't hit the same distance that men can. The notable exception being Annika Sorenstam.
You could play men and women and just have different teams.
Oh, then it's a fundamentally different game. Especially in golf, where it's more than any other sport, the playing field is a factor. I mean, hockey, every ice rink's the same for the most part. I mean, you know, every football.
Not at the Joe.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean.
Those boards bounce a little.
Some boards will bounce differently, but ultimately, ice is ice.
Yeah.
You know, when you're playing gridiron football, a football field's a football field. Baseball diamonds, some of them are shaped differently. You know, on the outfield walls. Yeah, different dimensions. But that pales in comparison to in golf, where every course is different fundamentally in a lot of ways. And when you're going to say that, yes, women can participate in a men's golf tournament, absolutely, go right ahead. That field difference, that difference in the playing surface, needs to be equal for both of them, or else it's an unfair advantage.
The other problem with golf and men and women competing is who gives a shit about golf? It's not a major. Baseball is like the number 3 sport. So if we can get women in the number 3 sport, it's like NFL football, NBA, and then baseball. But then there's like hockey, soccer,
auto racing,
NASCAR. Yeah, NASCAR might even be higher than baseball. Yeah. And then another thing I haven't mentioned is that women fielding in the infield might not be quite as good as men. Maybe they can't zip it from shortstop to first base quite as fast. or there's a few more errors. But to me, that enhances the game. It makes it more exciting. If there's a few more errors and there's more batters getting barely safe, I think that enhances the game. It doesn't detract from the game. And then I had another idea, and this is where it probably falls off the plausibility scale, cliff, I should say. I went to a Tigers game for the first time last summer, and between innings, there's music blaring, there's things firing, and lights, and all sorts of things going on. That's probably more than half of the time you're there, and half of the entertainment value or more. So I have a way, especially with the music aspect, I have a way to make that part of the game. And the way you would do that is, have you ever seen like Texas cheerleading? And they're like doing these really, really gymnastic things, almost like Cirque du Soleil type stuff.
Like Bring It On.
Like Bring It On.
Yeah.
So the idea is to shorten the baseball game from 9 innings of baseball to 5 innings. And then so you would have 1 inning after both teams have offense in baseball. There would be a round of this competitive cheerleading.
So it's like chess boxing.
Kind of, yeah.
It's like a sexier chess boxing.
So it's a way to get more women interested and more women in the stands beyond just the fact that there's female players. And so each team would have like a round of cheerleading, like a song or whatever, also for an inning. And then the winner, based on judging, would get a point. So there's a guaranteed 5 points for the cheerleading part. And then if you average out the amount of points in a baseball game, it's probably about 5 total.
I don't know that average off the top of my head.
It might
I'm
be
sure a sabermetrician would.
Yeah.
Or maybe you do a full 9 innings of baseball still, but then between the innings, so there's 7 rounds of this.
I think baseball is long enough.
Yeah.
But the idea is you're not really lengthening it that much. You're just substituting all of the contests and the t-shirt gun cannons and all of that stuff that happens between the innings. You're just substituting that with something that matters for the game.
So no more Biggie Bagel, Dashing Donut, Cup of Coffee race.
Yeah.
I fucking hate that.
Which I always lose. I always end up in the wrong section.
It's not a real race. Like, it'd be one thing if it
it's-
was like a guy in a cup of coffee costume awkwardly running around the bases. That's fun. Minor league baseball is the best thing in the world because it's aggressively stupid. Like, it's the most meaningless thing in the world. And that's what makes it charming, is that there's a guy dressed up as all 5 members of the Village People dancing around.
Yeah.
But, you know, it's sports are best when not taken seriously.
Oh, yeah.
So if you combine, first of all, you have this talent pool of competitive cheerleading that's just not being utilized. So you're utilizing that talent pool. So now you have a 2-part game. Both parts, there's both men and women competing. And in baseball, you could say, well, the men are slightly better than the women because of their physical strength. And in the dancing part, women are a little bit better than the men. So then it's evening everything out. And it's evening out both the contest and the interest by the fans. So it's creating this almost equal
Playing field. No pun intended. Now, I have a fundamental question. What if the game goes into extra innings? Do you just continue this format?
Yeah,
Yeah,
I guess. Okay. I haven't gotten into the intricacies of that. But I do have one special rule that I think will make it funner to watch. So you would have a fixed number of baseball players and a fixed number of competitive cheerleaders. And if anybody gets injured, they would have to substitute somebody from the other group or forfeit the game. So like if a baseball player gets injured and can't complete the game, one of the team's competitive cheerleaders would have to sub for him in the baseball.
Okay.
So you'd have this rare event that doesn't happen but every maybe 30, 40, 50 games where you would have somebody awkwardly trying to do something that they don't really know how to do. Yeah, so you'd have this
pull the hamstring.
fat baseball player who can't dance at all. He'd be trying to do the cheerleading thing and like bumping into people and like
I had a roommate in college
making a fool of himself.
I had a friend in college who was a cheerleader for one semester, and honestly, it didn't seem that hard to do.
Yeah, I had friends who did cheerleading.
Like, you could just show up and do it.
Yeah.
Which is what he did, because he was into a girl who was a cheerleader. Fun fact, didn't
That's-
work out.
And one last thing. This has to do with stadiums. This is like a new sport in a way. It's like a new league. My thought is, since you're starting fresh, you don't need to assign teams to cities. You can just have floating teams, and
Barnstorming teams.
is that what they call that?
Yeah.
I hadn't heard that.
Yeah, so there used to be back in like the old Negro leagues back in the 30s, and then even like old football and old basketball like back in the 30s and 40s. There was usually one or two teams that would barnstorm and didn't actually have a home court. I don't remember when the last of these existed.
Were they assigned a city, but they just didn't have a stadium in the city, or were they just...
Sometimes they were, other times they just existed.
But I like the idea of no teams having a city. And basically you would pick your favorite team based on the players and the identity of the team.
And then it's basically Slamball. Do you remember that?
Mm-hmm.
Remember Slamball?
The trampolines.
Yeah, Slamball was a sport that was invented for Spike Network in like the early aughts. And it was basketball, but on trampolines. It was just dudes dunking the shit out of basketballs.
I remember 90% of the points scored in Slamball were dunks, and then every once in a while you'd see somebody shoot a jump shot, and you're like, what the hell?
Yeah, you're in the wrong
What
fucking... It's like almost worth a penalty. Like,
But
you're
he
in the
would
wrong-
make it, yeah, he would make it to be like, wow, that you're right, like that almost shouldn't count.
I do not remember this at all. When was this? Like
This would have been the early aughts.
Yeah.
I would have had cable. I guess I never noticed that it was there.
Yeah, there was Slamball, then there was the XFL.
So yeah,
Your now defunct sport.
my ideas
Sorry.
are coming from the pedigree of other failed experiments. It sounds like
Yeah,
that I
there's
didn't
going
know
to be
about.
your league, the XFL, the USFL, the league that the Detroit Vipers were in,
The IHL.
and then Slamball.
So, how would you rate the quality of my idea versus those other failed leagues?
I would say keep getting up there.
Huh? I don't know what that means.
That is the eternal... That means you're lucky. That is the eternal stand-up term
Oh yeah,
for...
keep
Oh.
getting up.
Just keep working it out, man.
Try
Keep-
something
keep
new.
getting
up.
Like, it's not a good idea.
Just keep
keep
working
working.
it on it, man.
Keep
You'll find
working.
it.
But yeah, the idea of having the floating stadium is that
No, if it was a stadium, that
it
was
can
actually
shrink and grow as the sport, as the popularity. So it could get really, really small, and then all of a sudden, like it's on like
I'd
the
rather-
equivalent of Oprah or something, and all of a sudden, all these housewives want to see it, and then they go into bigger stadiums, and then
I'd rather just have a straight-up like floating stadium, like an actual like find a giant turtle or something.
that was my idea. And any comments, any humorous quips or insults that I can splice in that. Because there wasn't much back and forth.
I like how it started off like very sexist, but then it like slowly like made like
I resent the idea that it started off as sexist. I mean, I could like add the word "some" in front of every time
Yeah.
I say the word
Okay,
"women."
there you go, that's-
Some women aren't as strong as some
Yeah.
men. But
Statistically
do we
speaking.
really need to are we
argue
really
ball.
that?
Do we really need to argue balls and strikes here? No pun intended.
So we just finished my idea, which is baseball with both men and women players that Chris thought was sexist, which was the exact opposite of the intent.
But if there's a female batter, and let's say she hits a grand slam, is it only worth 3 runs?
Ah, damn it! That's way better than anything we said.
I'm Chris Lazar.
I'm Dan Turco.
I'm Tom Walma. This is Creativity Wasted. If you like this podcast, please subscribe and give a review or rating on iTunes, Google Play, Stitcher, SoundCloud, or wherever you got it. I have a website, creativitywasted.com, and I also started a Patreon. So if you love the show, consider donating to Patreon. Thanks for listening.